But, I mean, look at the broader picture. You have 1,900 megawatts being generated by one valley, amount of crores of rupees, thousands of crores of rupees which is generated, and how much you are putting into the valley. And just 1 lakh of population who live downstream in the Kali Valley, which, I mean, people, the government doesn't care even to provide the basic minimums. And the richest biodiversity areas, because what they have done is, when they built the first dam, super dam, they destroyed the catchment and the people were rehabilitated in that catchment area. I mean, look at the folly of the engineers, look at the folly of the policymakers, what they have done. So, when we address all these questions, I would say that at least Karnataka government is proactive. Okay, in the third or fourth dam, they did have good compensation. But is the compensation only way? How will you regenerate the catchment? It's a very, very important aspect. Now, when we talk of the other river, which is Sharavati, what has happened is, we have built series of dams there. And we did a march, again the foot march, along Sharavati in 2006, walking along, against the same idea, not to spread our message, to share their anguish. And then we realized that the river, which is flowing for 140 kilometers, doesn't flow even for 8 kilometers. Natural flow is not even 8 kilometers. By the time it flows till the 8 kilometers, the backwaters is there. Same thing with Kali also. I mean, it hardly flows for about 10 kilometers. Then the backwaters. So, where is the living river at all? And with Sharavati, the Center for Ecological Sciences, Indian Institute of Science, which studied for almost 2 to 3 years, came out with the report saying that the catchment is gone. Because you have the land use in the catchment has changed from forestry to monoculture. The dam, the life of the dam itself is threatened due to silting. And today we have this huge generators for installed capacity of generation, but it doesn't function at all. I mean, Karnataka is one of the severe facing the crunch of power. The dams are there, the reservoir is there, good monsoon, but no power. So the silting is very heavy. And this was predicted scientifically by Center for Ecological Sciences. No action was taken. And this we could see when we were walking along the river. We could not only see, but the people telling us what is happening. And, dams causing floods. Because once you have huge kind of, like this year, heavy rains, then they want to release suddenly the water. The areas which had never experienced floods, they are facing floods now. And how does that have impact? We hear about California where just for a salmon, you remove a dam. And here we have series of dams. I mean, forget about salmons. We are least bothered about how the whole destruction is taking place. Of the fish or whatever the biodiversity, we are not bothered. So in contrast to this, I think Bedti and Agnashani, the two rivers which I mentioned, is a very standing example of the people's struggle. It goes back to 1980s, the Bedti River, where they wanted to build a huge dam. And because I think this is one of the most prosperous regions in the whole of India, not only in terms of forests, but in terms of the kind of spice gardens, areca, cardamom, spice, pepper, etc. They were fairly rich, and they opposed it under the leadership of the local Swamiji. And they were able to stop it. And you know what was our slogan those days? We said, instead of large giant, let us have small micro dams. And today, in the whole of Western Ghats in Karnataka, we are facing the problem because of the small dams, micro dams. Why? Because the micro dams are being taken, just 5 megawatts, 10 megawatts, it is being established in the most fragile, remote areas. And that is the most destruction part, because fragmentation of the whole, of the catchment, whatever is left, that is what we are doing. I mean, fortunately, because of the people's movement, taken it to court, it is stopped. So what I am saying is, the struggle goes on since last 3 decades. Against Agnashini, they just wanted, I mean, it's one of the free-flowing rivers. They wanted to build a barrage to take water under the ADB projects to Sirsi town. People said, no, we'll not even to build you a barrage. Let it flow free. And Agnashini, the mouth of Agnashini, which is called Tadadi, is one of the richest biodiversity areas. Not only mangroves, but the fish. Excellent studies showing how this is one of the estuarine richest biodiverse areas in the entire Western Ghats belt. And look at the kind of folly that, when you see the diversity, we know Gokarna, which is very famous as a kind of alternate to Goan beaches. But in the same area where Agnashini joins the sea, there were a series of struggles since last 4 decades. The first one was dismantling of the ship-breaking units. People opposed it. The second one was barge-mounted power plants on the same river. People said, no, we will not let it happen. That was stopped. And then a Korean company was given the entire stretch to build a big port. You own the port, free, operate, whatever that term is called, PPP. Operate. MOU was signed. People said no. And they succeeded. And just 2 years back, they packed off 4,000 megawatt thermal power plant for the region. For Agnashini? Oh yeah, on the banks, mouth of Agnashini. That is Tadadi. So it's a series of struggle. And I would say that nowhere in the country you will see a region like Uttara Kannada, series of struggle for not only the rivers, but trying to say what is happening, why we should save it. And fortunately, because of the people's movement, we have been able to hold on to that. But, I mean, as you said in the beginning, and my friend Sudhindar always says, it's a story of living rivers, dead rivers. But in Western Ghats, it's still the living rivers.
How long?
How long? That is the question. And let us look at the pictures and see what is there, whatever I have spoken, how far we see it on the, yeah. As I said, powerhouse, totally more on the generation of the power. And now going to coast in the Konkan, from Jaitapur nuclear power plants to series of thermal power plants. It will change the entire kind of, fragile nature of Western Ghats. This is the origin of Kali River. I mean, look at the kind of forest. This is a sacred grove. Look at what is the kind of catchment areas. Super Dam, one of the biggest dams. West Coast Paper Mill, with all the ISO 9000, adhering to all the very good practices, and green. Even the CSE from Delhi gives it a green chit, says it is doing very good. Look at the pollution. And how the rivers of Kali in Kannada means black, the river which is black. So it's the blackness which is part because all the leaves, etc. falling in. But now it's black because of the pollution of the paper mill. So the farmer is not cultivating crops, he is cultivating the paper. Look at the slide. Because the water which is left after the paper factory, I mean, when he irrigates, it is not the irrigating the crops, he gets the paper. That kind of pollution which is happening. The catchment area, the forest in the Kali catchment is very rich, and you have, species which can treat cancer. It's the most biodiversity rich area. And the tribals as well as cultural diversity is also very, very rich. Foot march, Kali foot march when we started.
This was when?
It's 2003. As you said, Kali not flowing at all. Maybe flows only during the monsoon. That is the state of, this is almost after we built that first dam, there is no flow at all. So whether it is a living river or a dead river, it's almost, I feel, a dead river. What I was talking to you of the silting, the same dam, last 25 years it has filled to, height only once, despite that, lot of silting happening. Mining, lot of mining happening, not now, but it happened in the catchment areas, change. And because of that, the color of the kali, washing the silt and sediments change. All this mining, that change. River Sharavati when we started, yeah. Well, what we see here is, I mean, unfortunately, this forest is gone, and now the last Sharavati tail race project, after the Jog Falls, this forest is also gone because they built the dam there also. See. Our foot march along the Sharavati river. I mean, we are crossing the backwaters. See. This is the kind of meeting we would have in a village, sit around, have a chat, trying to understand what is their anguish. And I think that is the way to listen to the river. Listen to the cultures which have lived along the rivers. The end at the coast, and the last ceremony of the end of the foot march has changed. This is the Agnashini, which is still flowing. And as I said, they wanted to build dams, but they have held down last 3 decades has changed. This is what I mentioned, the biodiversity, the estuary, where they wanted to build the port, they wanted to build the thermal power plant, they wanted to build the barge-mounted power plant, and all that has been opposed. Very rich in terms of fish, all the other aquatic resources. This is the same Agnashini estuary. But what is happening, as Iyerji said just now, today where does the movement stand? When I go back to the villages, they said, Pandu, why we should save this? My agriculture is not paying. If I can get for an acre 1 crore, I mean, there are hardly young people living in these areas. And I say, this is the most prosperous region in the country. And they say, look, if I can get 1 crore for a thing, I'll be very willing to give it. And we don't want to fight now. Why we should fight? Because the survival is at stake. Our agriculture is not productive. And that is the real threat. And I don't know whether we'll be able to save it for another. Because the younger generation or the people who live there today, they say, look, it is almost impossible. I mean, we have villages where either children have gone to California or to Bangalore, but only elderly people living. And young generations who live there don't get the girls for marriage. Leave alone the productivity of the region. I mean, socially, culturally, it is getting degraded. And I think the entire region was able to oppose because of the richness of the culture, the nature, and that value system, which is threatened. And I think we don't have answers to this, which is affecting the society today. And I don't know how we are going to face in the coming decades, how we will face the challenge.